You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guests are Claire and Anthony Bueno. And we're going to be talking about a really fascinating documentary called Cleaning Up the Town, Remembering Ghostbusters. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Hello from England.
Hello from England, it is. Good
Wet,
old blighty.
cold, soggy England.
Is it really? Oh, no.
It really is, yes.
Send the rain here to California. We need it. We need the rain.
Oh,
You send us the sun, we'll send you the rain. It'll be a nice kind of exchange.
That's a deal. All right. We'll do it. Oh, I have to just tell you, this is the most fascinating documentary I've seen, and it is a movie for true cinephiles, for people who really want to know about the behind the scenes, about how a movie was made, especially back in 1983, which they didn't have the technology that we have today to create this. Truly it is a masterpiece. I mean, it is considered one of the best movies ever. Ghostbusters always appears on the top 10 list. So I know that this has been a journey of love for both of you, and it took you, over 12 years to make this documentary. So Anthony, why don't you start of what sparked the idea to do this documentary to begin with?
I think partial insanity or mostly naivety. I haven't quite decided which one the major part was. It was we've both been kind of like doing stuff kind of like film wise. I kind of gone to film school and Claire.
Yeah, I was doing a red carpet reporting, wasn't I?
Yeah, so it was and we worked on a docket about American Wealth in London. So, one thing I always quite liked was the DVD as it was back then, DVD special features. I said, God, what a cool thing to do. That'd be amazing. Do all those kind of things. Didn't actually think we'd kind of get that far. And just through the process of doing the werewolf thing and being a part of that was just like, this is really good fun. You get to talk to the filmmakers and you can really get into how these things were done back then. And every film's kind of different. And it was just a case of just saying to Claire, should we do one on Ghostbusters? Because it was just my favorite film. So that very easy decision at that point in time was where it all started. We were just sort of like, let's give it a go and see what happens. So, and we'd interviewed John Landis, and then I'd sort of like thought, if I get a chance, I'll ask him if we can get Dan Aykroyd. Because if we can get Dan Aykroyd, we know we've got a film. And I asked him, and he goes, "Oh, sure, I can get you, Danny." And that was it. It was just like, right, that's it, off we go. And then we just did our best to kind of get interviews, and it just 12 years later, we finally got there. But
admire your tenacity and not giving up, because that's what this business is about, following your dreams. And you hear even really well-known filmmakers, like a Spielberg, and it'll take years for him sometimes to get a project off the ground, and you're always surprised to hear that, because you think, oh, well, he can get anything done, right? So when you're just sort of starting out in your career and able to do that, Claire, how did you get involved? How did he Shanghai you into this project?
Shanghai is a very good word. He knew how to talk around talk his big sister around. But basically I was, and still, interview film talent either on the red carpet or one-to-one interviews. And I absolutely love interviewing and having that interaction with people. So for me, it was this opportunity to put kind of both of our skills together. Mine, doing the in front, though I'm not in front of camera in the documentary, but those kind of in front of camera skills. Anthony is a filmmaker and an editor. And putting them together, and he just said, should we just give it a go? And I'm kind of one of these people, kind of like, he who dares wins. I mean, we didn't sort of anticipate that it would take us 12 years, but we set off on a kind of maybe naive endeavor in the beginning to self-finance the film, to retain creative control. So there was I'm glad that we did that. For sure. But it certainly made for an additional complication, because obviously we're living in the UK and everybody's in the United States. So it was a case of kind of working, saving our money, and then going out to film. But for me, I'm kind of like, I'm somebody that wants to sit in their chair when they're 90 and say, I've lived life. And I think that this documentary, and sure enough, it has become that I can sit back and go, you know, I lived life, and we've got this beautiful film that we're very proud of to show for it, really.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you should be very proud of it. And I agree with you. That's exactly my philosophy. I didn't want to be in my rocking chair when I was 90 going, I wish I could have, should have.
Yeah.
You know, why didn't I do that? You know, go for your dream, go for it. And I have to tell you, Claire, I am a little intimidated because you have been on the red carpet and you have interviewed a lot of famous people, and you have your own show too. So I was like, oh gosh, I hope I can ask good questions.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. I'm honored. Thank you.
Thank you. So far, so good. We're only a few minutes in.
So good. Yeah.
We're only a few minutes in. Give it a shot. So who was your first interview? Who did you? I mean, you said you could get Dan Aykroyd, but you could tell that story. How long did it take you to actually get him after you got John Landis, who's wonderful, to say, "Oh yeah, I can get you, Dan"? How long did it take you to get Dan?
Yeah, young Mr. Aykroyd took 4 years to finally get him to, and a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
He was over.
That wasn't lynching him and shoving it down his neck to agree to do it.
Listen up.
Waterboarding with vodka.
The monotone is quite expensive. It was a cheap stuff for that. No, that was it. Yeah, I mean, it took 4 years, and again, logistics most of the time. Every time we were over, he was somewhere else because he was promoting the vodka, and he was doing a wine at the time as well. So that was all kind of like going on, and then he was over here promoting it, and we're just like, well, we'll go and we'll get a. It was Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah, this is a funny story.
Oh, what year was it?
2016.
No,
2015 then.
No, it was well earlier.
No, well before that, was it? Oh, I don't know.
2012.
I honestly,
I'm
useless with
maybe
dates.
it's 2012. Yeah, it must have been 2012. February 14th, 2012. So, and he was there, and then we finally kind of got in, and we knew the security because of the red carpet stuff that we were doing, because there was like saying one person per bottle. It's like, well, you have not got the money for 2 bottles of Crystal Head vodka
that we're not going to drink.
We're never going to drink. So, but anyway, there's no, you can both go in, it's fine. And then he was like, oh, well, is this like a Valentine's? Like, we're brother and sister, we're not from Kentucky. So, but he was really nice. And then he's like, have we done that interview? Really tall. And
about 6'4" or something.
Oh, really?
And when he knew who we were, because we like properly introduced ourselves, and when he was like, oh, the documentary, I remember him standing up and taking his sunglasses off, and we just had this chat, and he just like, yeah, we said we must do that. I'm, like, sorry, it hasn't happened now, but when you're going to be in the States next? I think we're over in April. I think we were planning to be over. And he goes, fine, call my assistant, we'll get it sorted out, and it'll happen. And that's how it turned out. That's exactly what happened. But it was, we never knew, and it was always, if we don't get him, then will we have a film? Because he is the whole person that's created the whole kind of Ghostbusters franchise now, really. So, but it was that's just sort of like how it happened. But Ernie just happened to be in the UK at a convention, and that just, the stars aligned for that one, and he was amazing. Ernie was fantastic.
He set the bar, didn't he? Really, really nice man, Ernie Hudson.
Oh yes, yeah, and it's a great interview with him. And what I love is how honest everybody was about this. That he didn't hold back. Ernie kind of just told you about what was going on behind the scenes and what was happening and how he felt, and that's really what's so great about it. This show is about bringing the film festival experience into your home, and that is what it's dedicated to independent filmmakers and documentarians. But your film really does go behind the scenes and really brings the whole idea of what film festivals are about too, when we interview people, on stage at film festivals and talk to them about how they made their film. Well, this is really what you did with this film. And oh my God, you have so many people in this movie. I mean, you really attracted a lot of people. So talk a little bit about how, the first one was Ernie, but then after that, how did it all begin to fall into place?
It was quite organic, really,
Yeah.
because we obviously, you know, we reached out to, you know, personal publicists and agents, but for the kind of the really kind of your Sigourney Weavers and your Harold Ramises, then, you know, they are much more difficult to kind of penetrate and get to. And we were fortunate, we'd interviewed Ivan Reitman, and when we put our requests in to interview Harold and Sigourney, then they went and spoke to Ivan and said, you know, we've had this request, are these people genuine? And he, you know, in fairness, gave us the thumbs up. And so we were, you know, we got access to, you know, that kind of high profile cast. But quite often as well, that, you know, because we're making a film sort of retrospectively, you know, then it was sort of 20 years ago, you know, that we were sort of contacting people. You know, some have retired, so they're not, you know, not necessarily on IMDb Pro, but what we found was it was all kind of like part of the organic process, which, you know, documentation and documentary filmmaking is. You know, you'll interview one person and they'll go, yeah, but have you spoken to so and so? And we're like, well, no, we want to speak to them, but we haven't got their contact. Hang on a minute, I'll give you their contact details. So, you know, there was a lot of that going on as well, wasn't it? And I think you picked up on something that was really interesting about how kind of candid these people are. You know, the comparison to when I've done red carpet interviews where, you know, these people are kind of very current, you know, they're contractually obliged to, you know, promote their film. It's a very different approach than, you know, when you're speaking to somebody retrospectively about a film that actually catapulted their careers. I mean, from in front and behind the camera. You know, and it was such a successful film. So, you know, there could be an element of, yes, they're telling you exactly as it was, but there's also, you know, they've got nothing to lose, these people. They've already had their careers. And so they are a little more honest about what they want to say, really. You know, and so, I mean, some of the stuff we couldn't even put in the documentary, but that's kind of filmmaking, you know, but it was, a lot of it was organic, wasn't it?
Yeah, really? It really was. You know, the reason why there's Richard and Terry in the same interviews, because Terry, who we couldn't get any kind of contact details for, we was in touch with her. She goes, oh, Terry's going to be here. Would you like to? Yeah, we'd like to. Great. And there we were. And that's how, and they just bounced off each other all the time. And they were hilarious anyway. They were really fun. Chatting with them like 4 hours, I think, before we actually got round to do the interview, because you were jabbing all the time with them. But it was, and then it's a nice thing, because there's a lot of people there that don't get a chance to be in front of the camera. Everyone always wants to talk to the main stars, the main kind of like talent, like director, the producer, or something like that. And it's never sort of like, you know, third person from the left, kind of sort of like holding a rod that's holding Slimer's arm up or something like that. But, you know, for us, it was like every single person has a story to tell. And if you get enough people telling the same story, then you can intercut and you can make something more out of that. And everyone has a slightly different angle or remembers things slightly differently. But it was, everyone's opinion is important. So what was important for us was every single person that we interviewed is in the documentary. And it's sort of like, we interviewed people for Ghostbusters 2 while we were doing all of that. So they're the only ones that aren't actually in it at this point. We'll doing a separate documentary all about that. But this was a chance for some of those to be seen.
The
because
unsung heroes. Yeah,
because some of them will say, like, if you just use a little bit, like Stuart Ziff was one of them. I always remember that. If you just use a little bit of the interview, it'd be great, because I sometimes get interviewed and they never use my stuff, and I'm just like, why would we have like taken the time to come and do this if we were just going to cut you out? That doesn't make any sense. But it, you know, you hear about this, it happens all the time. It's just like, I'm not doing that. It's not right. It doesn't feel fair. And you're robbing the audience of getting to know who these people are, because it's them and their personalities that made this film as lovable as it is. It wasn't just like one person that popped up and go, look, there you go, here's this film, isn't it amazing? And these people kind of helped, but you know, film isn't like that. It's a collaboration. It's a huge collaboration.
It is. It is. And I agree with you. I've interviewed a lot of people behind the scenes, you know, the editors and cinematographers and costume designers and makeup designers, you know, through the years, because I think it's important to because they help make the movie. They do the movie, you know. It's not always just about everybody in front of the camera, but all those people behind the camera that actually do make things happen. And in this film, considering that we did not have the technology we do today, it just blew me away when you were talking to everyone about, you know, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and how that came about, and you know, all of the different things, all the special effects that they created in the animatronics, how do you say that?
Yeah, animatronics, yeah.
You know, and how they did that, and how they created the monsters and the makeup that Sigourney Weaver, you know, worked with her makeup artist to create. So she had this otherworldly persona in the film. It was just all fascinating. There, you know, each and every part of it, each person you interviewed was truly fascinating. So let's talk about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, I guess it's what we're calling him, in the movie, and how that all came about. I mean, because that was pretty amazing. Because you don't, you know, when you're watching a movie, you're not really thinking about how they put that together. Maybe sometimes you are, maybe you as a filmmaker, you would be, and I do too sometimes, but generally we're there on the ride. We're watching the movie and we're not paying attention or thinking necessarily like, oh, how did they do that? Unless it's something really pretty amazing. But nowadays, with all of the technology we have, all of us don't really, well, we all know how they did it. It's a totally different world today, but back then it wasn't. So talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was really fascinating.
Well, that's the thing. I remember Steve Johnson, I don't know if it was on camera, but he sort of like said when he stepped out of the industry, it was because that sense of wonder and awe had gone, because everyone was just like, oh, you've just done it in a computer. I remember a friend saying something about they had a Star Trek advert over here for a power thing, this was years ago. And I was like, oh, that was amazing. He goes, it was just all done in the computer. It's like, it's not, it's still models. It's just like really bothers you. It's like, and not that, no, there's a lot of work that goes in computers, but you have something like Stay Puft. I always remember because I mean, if you haven't sat there and thought about it, they've done their job, because their whole job is to make sure you don't. It's something like you think about it afterwards, but at the time you just need to be absorbed. And I don't know if it's in the doc, I don't know if it's one of the scenes we had to cut about it's like the seam. There's several suits where the wires were in different places. So depending on where the camera was, you'd never see the seam. Because I remember Diane saying to us, if you see the seam, that's it. Straight away somebody's seen it and they'll know it's a suit, and you just completely destroy the effect. So it was always kind of hidden. And even though there are little things, now when you watch it and you watch it over and over, there's little things here and there that you can see, but it just disappears because you're just absorbed with you know, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man walking down Fifth Avenue, walking on Central Park West, which I remember seeing it in the cinemas, like, how on earth? The only way they did that is because he's actually there and they're filming him, because I couldn't get my head around how could you fake that. So the chance to kind of go and ask all the people involved and the various stages, and again, it's not one person, it's like several people coming in and trying and experimenting. And I know Thane Morris sort of like said to us that, you know, these days people just expect you to know how to do something. Whereas like back then it wasn't a given. It was, you were given the time to think it through and research it. And you know, Billy's saying about they would actually set marshmallows on fire to see how it burns and how are they gonna. So all of those little things, those fun things that you can do and you can play around, and then you eventually get to the point where you're actually filming it. And then you're setting it on fire, and that's a whole other kind of kettle of fish. So everything is a journey, and part of our job is to make sure that the stories that are being told are correct, because everyone does remember things differently. There was a lot of disparity in the stories with the height, how tall Stay Puft actually was, and there was two people that said it differently but said it the same. One used, I can't remember how they worded it now, it was like either in scales or in inches or in feet. And then Billy was like, it's like, oh, well, you know, I'm 5'8", and so Stay Puft was this, and then you scaled it up by X amount of percentage, and that was the height of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Somebody said like it was 152 feet, and it wasn't. I think it was 112.5 feet or something. And so there's me in the in the lounge with a tape measure. It's like, okay, I'm there and I'm like that, and if I'm doing that, no, that doesn't now do that. So I'm just trying all these things, like, okay, that's it. So that and that, and then you piece it together, then you have the actual story. So and Stay Puft is a hugely iconic. It's incredible how much of that film is is ingrained in popular culture now, to the point where the new film, you know, Stay Puft is still a big part of it, and which is great for Billy. I hope he's getting some money for that, by the way. But you know, but it was always just, I just, you know, loved hearing that. It's you know, film back then wasn't meant to kind of, those things they did wasn't meant to last forever. It was just like, it's an effect, you do it, done in seconds, and then it goes into the dumpster. Whereas now people are spending hundreds of thousands just to get a piece of moldy bit of like latex, which was once connected to a pterodog head or something. And the Stay Puft was something else. And the setting on fire thing, you know, different people actually doing that was just like, I didn't know that at all.
Again, you don't think about that. You don't think that there's a real person in there.
No, you don't. I mean, that's just how clever it is.
And the science.
And that's a good word, actually. Science. There is a science behind it all, isn't there?
Because as much as, you know, sometimes it's a case of let's throw a bit of this and throw a bit of that. You know, slime is just a double exposure technique. Basically, it's one of the oldest sort of like forms of visual effects. But you know, but then there's this whole other thing kind of going on, the fire and what chemicals are used, and all of a sudden they're talking in a completely different language. It's like, and it's, you know, the trick is not to be intimidated by some of that, because, you know, you watch the making ofs back in the day with Spielberg and Lucas about Star Wars and Indiana Jones and things, and you're thinking there's absolutely no way on earth I could do anything like that. And then
we're sat in a room talking to these people.
And then but they humanize it. All of a sudden you realize you don't need to know that thing. They need to know that. And that's why you employ them. And you hopefully have a great time exploring and inventing those things and going through ideas with them, because that's the kind of people they are. They don't come in going, well, this is my way, and blah, blah, blah. They're open to the experience and that part of the journey. And that was, I think
Richard Edlund's got to be you know, attributed to having that ethos and creating that. He's at the top of the tree there, and he's, you know, instilling this teamwork and ethic and also this kind of pioneering, you know, experimentation, you know, within the boundaries. I mean, you can't go mad. There's a budget to also be working to, but I think he allowed people the freedom to create.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. I think my one regret is that I couldn't work on the actual film itself. I absolutely, you know, with all of them.
Well, it's, you know, it's the collaboration, and they were under a deadline too, because when they got the go ahead to make this movie, it was just a little over a year, and they hadn't even written it. And I love the history of how this idea came about with Dan Aykroyd. And you went to Lilydale. I've been to Lilydale many times, and when I saw that, I went, oh my goodness, you know, I used to live in Rochester, New York, and Lilydale's where you used to go. Actually, I had somebody draw my aura, and it was a broadcast signal. And we're talking about, a long time. We were talking back in the 80s. So that was a long time ago. And I never forgot that was my aura. God. Yeah.
What was it actually like? Because it was all closed up when we went there. It was,
it's so much. It's so interesting. You know, and I used to go in the wintertime, and, you know, it was, and I think you showed that too. I'm not sure, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating. But I don't want to take you off, because one of the things I want to ask is, how did you get all that archival footage? Where did that? Because that obviously they were filming it when they were, you know, they're filming the background of this movie as they're making the movie. But how did you get access to all of that?
Well, Sony haven't found out it's missing yet. So
Not a word.
Our British sense of humour there. I mean, we have to thank people like Richard Edlund, John Bruno, Mark Brian Wilson,
Steve Johnson,
Stuart Ziff,
Diana
Hannum. They all contributed their personal archive and allowed us to use their material. We also had Derek Osborne, who is our motion graphics editor, who did a phenomenal job with all the, you know, texturizing the images and bringing that to life. But he's also an archivist, the Ghostbusters archivist. So he had first of all come on board as our archive producer, and so he had a wealth of you know, old scripts and call sheets. So all of those materials that we could you know, use in the documentary. So we have a lot to thank him for as well, don't
amazing.
we?
Yeah.
But we really have, you know, a lot to thank the actual people that worked on the film for entrusting us with their archive.
Yeah.
You know, it's you're very blessed. You're very blessed. This is it truly is a brilliant film. And immediately I wanted to go watch Ghostbusters after watching this. So
oh, fantastic! That's what you want.
Yes, exactly. Because you know, I wanted to go back and relook at it after I watched this documentary. Where can people go see this film, and where can they go see this film?
Well, it's out in US cinemas the 1st of October, so that's tomorrow, and then from Tuesday the 5th of October it's available on VOD, the whole 2 hours and 5-10 minutes of it.
Yeah, across the various
like iTunes. Yeah,
I highly recommend it. Cleaning Up the Town, remembering Ghostbusters. If you love Ghostbusters, even if you weren't a big fan or didn't even know about it, maybe you're a younger generation, please seek this out, because you'll really learn a lot about the history of making movies and back in an era where we didn't have all the technology that we have today. So thank you both. I wish you much success. This is a great documentary. It was worth the 12 years.
Oh, well, thank you, Jana. Thank you for having us on your show.
Thank you. If you have missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, you can go to my website, thejanpriceshow.com, or you can listen on your favorite podcast network. And we are on the iHeart Podcast Network, Apple, Google, Spotify. We're everywhere. Actually, also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe at the YouTube channel. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Jan Price Show. Thank you all for listening.